Well, it's never a bad time to talk flooding in Northeast Florida, but the issue is especially top of mind for folks following the epic and tragic flooding in the hill country of central Texas. Here to talk about local flooding concerns is Corinne Hermle. She is the Strategic Planning Basin Coordinator for the St. Johns River Water Management District. Good morning, Corey.
Good morning.
So we have seen, obviously, all of us, these harrowing images of the, you know, flooding and the unbelievable loss
Mhm.
of life in Texas. How likely is a scenario like that here in Northeast Florida? Obviously, we've got a very different topography.
Yes, that's a big part of it. So in Florida, that wall of water that we've all kind of been seeing on the news media going through Texas, the only time you're really going to see that in Florida because it is so flat is typically with a hurricane storm surge. So most times when we see flooding events, it's going to be like the flood waters, your streets are flooding, it's starting to rise up into your yard and everything, and we have time. It's not that wall of water that's wiping everything out in front of it.
And so that is good news in some ways. Typically, when we are in a hurricane path, we do
Mhm.
have, 5 days, maybe more to prepare, unlike, what they saw in Texas.
Mhm.
And yet we are increasingly seeing flooding from, I mean, ask the folks in San Marco, right? Just last week, we were having terrible thunderstorms every afternoon, flooding every day for the people that live there. And so, what about when it comes to those unnamed and really not necessarily tracked storms that just come upon us? Is that kind of flash flooding possible then as well?
Really, it's about that rainfall amount that's coming down and how quick of a time is it coming down. So a lot of times when we have some of these storm events that come that are hurricane based or even say like just a nor'easter, what will happen is that the St. Johns River is typically a very slow flowing, almost lazy river.
Mhm.
And so when you have these storms that come up on the coast, it kind of almost blocks that the St. Johns River from draining out into the ocean. And when you get that, either from storm surge or wind pushing the water upstream, it actually can kind of overwhelm the flow of the river and push the water upstream. That doesn't allow the water to drain out. And most of our engineered stormwater systems and most of our streams and our creeks, they're draining the St. Johns River. They're reliant upon draining into it and draining out in the ocean. So if it becomes that wall that doesn't allow drainage to happen, that's going to back up, and that's when you're going to start seeing flooding in neighborhoods and in communities.
And so that's something I guess that we're getting to know more of, compound flooding, which is when
Mhm.
we've got rain coming down, we have perhaps winds or waves, as you say, holding the river in. And then you kind of have this inland mess where it's just overspilling the banks of the rivers and the tributaries. Um, and and so in some ways, it really depends on when is that rain falling? Is it happening at a tidal point that, everything is higher than usual? Is it happening when there's a wind event?
Yes, exactly. So if the St. Johns River itself, because it's slow flowing, you can actually get a tidal effect like well over 100 miles upstream. So
Wow.
well beyond Putnam County, we'll see tidal effects. And that tells us that when we get those winds or we get something that interrupts that flow, those waters are going to rise up. It's going to overwhelm those systems. And that's why we try and work with our local governments and communities to come up with cost effective solutions to address that flooding, whether it's helping them to enhance their stormwater systems to give it the capacity to pull the water out of those neighborhoods so those neighborhoods aren't flooding. But also, it goes hand in hand with having natural areas to help kind of store that water as a sponge because 1 acre of wetlands and floodplain can hold well over 1 million gallons of water.
Wow.
So rather than being like this traffic jam that happens because the river's not flowing, the water's building up, it's backing up, we're trying to see one, can we get the water out of neighborhoods so that it's not flooding neighborhoods? But two, can we put that water kind of as a place to store it for a little bit to then allow it to slowly flow out and not overwhelm the system all at once?
And so you say we, and we should probably just say, like, okay, who is the water management? The St. Johns River Water Management District is one of 5 districts in the state. Not everybody knows who you are or what it is that you do.
So the St. Johns River Water Management District, we cover 18 counties in central and northeast Florida. And for the St. Johns River Water Management District, our focus is water, whether it's flood protection or looking at water supply or looking at water quality or helping to enhance and restore natural systems. Our main focus is water.
Are you the person that people call when their stormwater pond is not working as it should?
So the district, we do have a permitting program. We do permit stormwater systems, and the focus of that is on a regional focus to make sure that new developments don't overwhelm and end up pushing You get a new development and it pushes flooding into an older residential area.
Sure.
We want to make sure that new development can actually handle the stormwater and not cause added impacts to areas around it. But for the district, our focus is just trying to see how can we help our local governments, our local communities manage those floodwaters and reduce those impacts and increase and build resiliency in our communities.
So if a stormwater pond is being built, you're kind of at the permitting edge of it or requiring it. But if somebody's got a complaint about it, you're probably not the best place to take it.
That would be either it would be the local government or their developer or the HOA that is helping to manage those systems. Most communities in this part of the state will have a homeowners association that will help oversee those stormwater systems.
Okay. So in terms of, flooding risks, there are, as we say, there's things like compound flooding. There's things like, um, river backing up and or major storms. Are we also, though, not just seeing kind of the accretion of water, the sea level rise that is happening? And how is the Water Management District preparing for that?
So we're working again with our local communities and our local governments and other agencies to see can we find cost-effective projects to kind of either help enhance and restore natural systems because again there are these sponges that can help hold this water, or can we find ways to make stormwater systems more effective and to help kind of get that water out of communities where it needs to be because those are two big factors. Can we get the water out and can we find some place to store it?
And finding that place is not cheap necessarily because land is expensive. And if you're trying to find this giant repository to be a floodplain to absorb this water, someone has to pay for that.
Exactly, exactly. But that is so the district, we do have quite a few conservation lands. We do have a recent acquisition with the Pablo Creek Conservation Area to the east of us. That is going to be restored and enhanced. And a big part of that, because it's by Pablo Creek, you'll be able to take all that water for that part of Jacksonville and be able to hold it and help store it and let it slowly disperse out into the system.
And so you're focused on this whole St. Johns River Basin, basically this multi-county area. Is there something individuals can do to just in their own neighborhood, in their own home, kind of make their land more absorbent or resilient?
So, probably the first step I would tell everybody is to one, know your zone. Are you in a flood zone? Is there someplace, is this an area that you need to be aware of? And the Florida Division of Emergency Management actually has a know your zone. So you can type in your address and see if you're in a flood zone or not. You can also check with your local emergency management for your county or city to see they also have that information. But for homeowners, really the biggest focus is when you are maintaining your lawn, try and make sure like your lawn clippings or your grass clippings are not impeding stormwater systems.
Don't put them in the drain, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And a lot of people do, surprisingly.
Exactly. And it'll end up clogging the drain, which then when we have a storm event, it just becomes another kind of plug that causes those floodwaters to start to build in your neighborhood.
And so, if somebody has a neighbor that's doing that, what do you suggest that they do to address it?
They can reach out to their local government or their code enforcement to let them be aware. They can also inform them if they do see, if there's a rainfall event and they do see a storm drain does not appear to be flowing well, they can inform them that that storm drain is probably impeded or clogged.
All right. Final thoughts as we move into kind of peak hurricane season.
So final thoughts is one, know if you're in a flood zone or not. If you are in a flood zone, you may want to consider flood insurance. That's an individual decision for everybody. Keep in touch with your local emergency management services and keep aware of hurricane alerts and weather alerts so that you are informed. That is the biggest takeaway for everybody is we're just kind of in the start of hurricane season. There's still time. Make a plan, stay informed, and stay safe.
All right. Well, Corey Hermle, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for coming on today and for your work with the Water Management District.
Thank you.